So, hey, it's Kyle Figley. I'm here at CBR.com. It's San Diego Comic-Con. We're all very hot and sweaty, but we're having a lovely time, and I'm here with Josh Williamson, the writer of The Flash and incoming on Justice League Odyssey and other things. You've been a dabbler at many different places for a long time, but have you gotten to the point where you're like, I really want to focus on this DC stuff? I've finally gotten my hands on these characters, and I want to jump into it?
Yes. I mean, I feel like I still write Birthright over with a Skybound Image. But right now there really isn't any like creator-owned books on the horizon for me right now. It really is just about the DCU. But I love the DC universe. I've been a big fan of it since I was a little kid, and so there's also a lot of fun knowing that I'm in the room helping build a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the universe. I mean, I've worked on every event since Rebirth started.
Yeah.
So like I worked on the beginning with the Flash stuff at the very beginning with like just the launch of DC Rebirth, and then immediately I started working on Justice League Suicide Squad. When Justice League Suicide Squad ended, I started working on the Button. When the Button ended, I started working on Metal. When Metal ended, I started working on No Justice.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking about literally, like, I would be in the building and I'd be like, all right, cool, we're signing off on the ending to the Button, being like, okay, we're good, Button's out the door. But the reason I'm in the building is not because of that, is that we're talking about Metal. Like that's how it's been for almost every event. Like I'm literally, the day I'm in the office to like wrap up one event, I'm actually there because we're starting another one. So I feel like I'm very tied into the DCU at this point, and talking with Scott and everyone else, and going to the writers' retreats and just talking about the future of it. And it definitely has my focus right now. I mean, I think with the Flash every day. Like that's been in my brain nonstop. But yeah, I definitely feel like the DCU is kind of where I'm at for like the foreseeable future. I just re-signed my contract, my exclusive. So I'm definitely, they're stuck with me for a while.
No, yeah, congratulations. That's very nice.
Thanks.
So let's talk about the Flash. Flash War just ended. I think that it's a rare time in comics when you actually pit two characters who we think of as heroes against one another, and people read it and they go, well, whatever, everybody's going to make up or everything's going to be fine. I found that you actually found a way to inject drama into Barry versus Wally in a way that we don't often see, and I think it's because maybe Wally's status has been so uncertain and not on sure footing for such a long time. I mean, did you know that you had kind of volatile ground to play with? Did you want to maybe mess with people a little bit in terms of that?
I don't want to mess with them, but I feel like from the moment it was announced that I was on the Flash, it was even before, we knew that Wally was coming back, right? Because like when I was announced, it was just me with Barry. Like it wasn't announced that Wally was coming back in DC Rebirth. And, from day one, it was people just like, who's the fastest Flash? Like immediately. It's like, who's faster? Who's your favorite? Who's this? And you get in that thing where there is that fandom that is constantly clashing with each other, and that is already there. And the idea of taking that to another level and actually being able to tell a story and play with that was definitely fun. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, it's part of our job to try to elicit emotion, to try to bring out this to move you, right? To really get you engaged with these characters. And with Barry and Wally, I feel like there was already a story kind of written in there, that had already been constructed that just no one had ever been able to do or play with. I mean, really, Barry and Wally have coexisted for about a year since Crisis Infinite Earths. For one whole year, they were coexisting.
Yeah.
Or like a year and a half-ish, right?
Yeah.
But they haven't since. So this has never been able to be done before.
Yeah.
So we started talking about this stuff, like how can we actually do this story? How can we build this tension between them so it feels believable? It didn't just feel abrupt or you didn't buy it. And we started talking about it was funny because at first we were like, well, that's gonna be a challenge, and then we were like, no, there's actually a lot of stuff here between them. There's the stuff about Iris, about Wallace, about how Barry is about certain things, and how Wally can be, and how Wally hadn't really built a life since Rebirth. He'd kind of been just floating through, like you were saying. He hadn't established anything. And that was interesting because it was in his character, but it was in the book. Like, nobody had really been able to really establish him as a character again. And we were able to use that as part of the narrative of Barry going to him and being like, you haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Since you came back.
Well, it's so funny because Wally, when he was the Flash solo, for all those years that Barry was not on the table, Wally was the character that was like, I love being a superhero, like I'm not covered in angst. I don't have all these problems or whatever. And now he's got nothing but. So it is a real interesting flip to what people expect, and what people expect when like, Wally's going to be back. Well, he's not going to be the same,
Well, I think Wally, it's interesting. I feel like it's the same problem that Barry has, where everyone tries to remember everything with this like rose-tinted glasses. Like if you go back and you look at, this is gonna be a long answer to this question, but and I feel like it's always interesting how Barry, the way we remember Barry is not the way Barry was written. Like everyone remembers Barry as the way Mark Waid wrote him, right? Like if you go and you look at Return of Barry Allen, which is just as much a Barry story as it is a Wally story, it's about how Wally saw Barry. Not only how Wally saw Barry, but how Eobard, who was obsessed with Barry being this perfect hero, is about how he saw them. And Wade wrote Barry from the POV of two people who idolized him. And so what ended up happening is Barry started becoming that character, and no one speaks ill of the dead, right?
Yeah.
So he became the savior. He became the perfect hero. He became flawless. And that's how Barry saw him, as someone he could never come out of his shadow. He could never escape and never be as good as Barry. But if you go back and read those stories, if you go back and read a lot of pre-crisis stuff, Barry was not perfect. You know, he was definitely a flawed individual, and he made mistakes. He's also one of, I mean, he's the only, not the only, I shouldn't say only, but he's one of the heroes who killed their villain.
Yeah.
He did the thing you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
But he did it. And I think there's a part of us that also now feel the same way about Wally, where I think people look at the way Wally was in that time period, but really what they're talking about is if you go back and you read issue 225, which is Jeff and Howard Porter, and it's the end of Rogue War.
Yeah.
If you read that issue, Wally is happy. Wally is with Linda. He has the kids. He has the Flash family that he built. That was a Wally thing, not a Barry thing.
Yeah.
He built the Flash family. In that moment, I think people try to remember Wally as only that moment. There's that splash page in the last page where Wally is running toward the reader, and he has everything he ever wanted. And I almost feel in a lot of ways Wally's story kind of ended there. It didn't, but there's a close of a
there's
chapter.
a point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all kind of remember that as if that's the way he only was that moment. But if you go back and you read the first 100 issues, all the way up to Terminal Velocity, Wally struggled, and he wasn't always happy. I mean, he's the guy who won the lottery and bought a mansion and was like mean to his girlfriend. Like he was not this perfect character.
Yeah.
People kind of try to remember him as.
Sure.
You know, he had this, and then even Linda, like him and Linda had these struggles, and he didn't always win. You know, he would lose, and he would panic. If you go back and read Terminal Velocity, where he wouldn't tell Linda the truth, he wouldn't tell Iris why he was panicking, why he was worried. What he'd obviously coming back from 0 Hour, he had seen a bit of the future, and that was making him nervous.
Those are great issues. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like there's me as a Flash fan, I was also guilty of this, and I feel like now when I go back and I read all this stuff, that's the kind of feeling I want us to have, is that idea of that struggle, that the reason that Barry and Wally are so great and why they've been this awesome Flashes is because we did present these challenges to them, and they always overcame them. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm trying to do in the book. I'm trying to make sure that I'm able to kind of continue to put them through these struggles, you know, and try to do that kind of storytelling with them. It's not always going to be happy and perfect.
Now, somebody on YouTube right now is being like, all right, when are we going to talk about Bart? They're like, you've done this whole conversation.
Talk about Bart. Yeah. I feel like Bart's so funny. Listen, man, I can't believe we kept it a secret. Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe that no one knew. I remember it was like, so the first time I brought up Bart in a meeting, when I got the job. When I got the job, I was like,
it was right away.
So, you know, this character. Like, my original document had like everything in it, and they were just like, no, you can't do all that stuff. And it was, but part of it is, and I say this all the time, like, you can't just go to them and say, I want this character just because. You have to have a story, a reason, a plan. Like, you have to go and pitch a story for that character.
Yeah.
And so I would say about every 6 months I would bring Bart up. I would always be like, what about, actually, no, I would say it took the first year of me having the job to bring him up in a meeting again. And then I brought him up again, and it just kind of would always sort of come around. And then I remember when I put him in the script, I had been talking with him about it, and I knew certain things, and I felt like the stars were finally aligning on like big picture DC stuff to where I could do this. And I remember writing him in the script and being like, someone at some point is going to stop me. Like, this is not going to happen. And I was able to pitch it and explain why and how it would happen and what the plan was moving forward. And again, the stars just kind of aligned. But I was in the office the week it went to print, and we kept it so secret. There were some people in the office that didn't know. And someone had printed out a color of that splash page and showed some people, and they had it on their desk. And I was even paranoid. I was like, put that away. Like, I don't want someone to like walk through here as a guest and see that and then spoil it like a month early.
Yeah.
So I was very on top of it, and you know, and we made sure that no one knew. But that week before, I would say like Friday before it came out, I started getting DMs from people I know who get them early, just saying like thank you and just being excited about it. And then retailers started, but yeah, I couldn't believe we kept it a secret that whole time. I don't know, but I'm super excited about it. I love Bart. You know, he's my favorite because when I started reading The Flash, you know, I was like 12, 13 years old, and you know, I was reading the book, and then once they introduced Bart, you always take ownership, I think, of characters that get introduced.
Yeah, when you're in
know?
your formative reading. Yeah. It's
you
like,
get
what's the golden age of comics? 11.
Yeah.
But
But here's the thing. So it's like that's why like James Tynion, like he has Tim Drake is his guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's right, because that's his Robin. There's something special about being able to take ownership of a character that you know is being like it comes out and is being created like while you're reading. And I think that was the thing with Bart. Like I was reading Flash on a regular basis, but I was at that exact right age where they kind of reintroduced a bunch of sidekicks. Because it was Superboy, it was Tim, it was Bart, it was Cassie, like.
And even on that first issue that Bart was in, it said there's a new kid in town, and they made Kid bigger, so it was like Kid Flash. It was like they're really trying to evoke that idea.
Yeah.
So, what does Bart being back on the table mean for how the trajectory of the book is going to go in the next 50 issues?
Well, Bart in particular, he's not really going to be in the book as much right now. I think there's other plans for him. There's other stuff we're doing, and I think with him in particular, like I have plans for him and things that I want to do. But to me, like. Really, these 4 issues, the event right now that is Flash War, that was really the first battle in the war. Like I feel like there's a really big story we're building to, and in the book, Hunter talks about like there's something bigger coming, there's other things coming, and you need to be the best Flash possible. And I don't believe you two can be the Flashes that you need to be, and that's why he puts the costume on, because he's like, I'll be the Flash for the big things that are coming. And so these 4 issues in 50, they're not the end of a story. That is really the beginning of a big story we're planning and doing moving forward. And so I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and we left some stuff on the table on purpose. There's a lot of unresolved stuff on purpose because it is, again, it's just this is the opening battle of this big story we have planned.
Yeah. So last thing I want to ask you about is Justice League Odyssey. Like you said, you took part in No Justice, where it really felt like, let's get as many characters as are available to be in a Justice League book and break them into these little units.
We had more. We had to cut them out.
Really? Can you name one who you had to cut out?
No, I shouldn't. We had a lot, though. I'm telling you, there was a lot of stuff, and you know, we definitely had to go in and kind of trim some stuff out. We had big ideas and big plans
for 4 issues.
And then as somebody was like, yo, you don't have room. So we had to cut some stuff out, but a lot of that stuff ended up going in other things.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because it seems like now that book ended, and Scott obviously has started up the core Justice League, which while his team is not the Big Seven, not the movie 7, whatever you want to say, it is really the iconic group. And then you just look at the art that Steph-John Sajek has done for Odyssey, and it's like, okay, this is a Justice League, but like not at all. I mean, it's very much a kind of wild card team. I mean, why was that an attractive thing? I mean, do you have an attraction to? Sometimes we have in history, you got Avengers and you got West Coast Avengers. You got Justice League, you got Justice League Europe. I mean, did you want to do kind of like the flip side book?
Yeah, I always liked the side team. I mean, this is going to be like maybe not the greatest examples, but when I was younger, I liked Justice League, but I also liked Task Force, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I liked Extreme Justice. I feel like I'm the only person sometimes. I liked Extreme Justice.
Those jackets.
So I feel like, yes, nothing wrong with those jackets. You know, I had these little, I always like kind of the side team sometimes, you know, like with X-Men, there's X-Force, you know, it's like, and I was a really big fan of X Factor. That was my favorite X book for a long time, was the Peter David one with Havoc and Polaris and like, you know, Quicksilver and Strong Guy and Rain. I'm just gonna name the whole team. Valerie Cooper. And Random. I liked Random too. Even though he was not really a team member. But anyway, so I always liked that other side team that was a little bit on the oddball side. And I feel like that was kind of the thing I wanted to do with this. We had been talking about doing a space book, like a big cosmic space book, and doing something that played around with the ideas of the source while following what that meant for the universe. What's going on with the fourth world stuff, all this happening? What is happening with all these cosmic characters? And then we put together this team that feels a little more ragtag, it feels a little more Dirty Dozen, and throw them off into space and see what happens. So we get to play around with a lot of the stuff that Scott's been developing, the stuff that we did in Metal, the stuff that we did in No Justice, and try and tell this like really big cosmic story through the eyes of these characters.
You know, while you're talking there and you say cosmic, and I think the book has Odyssey in it, and I think Darkseid.
Maybe. Yeah.
And I think Cosmic Odyssey, for the people who don't know, the great, amazing event that Mike Mignola drew back in the day, which was like one of the most heartbreaking stories ever on so many levels. Is that a piece of inspiration for you in naming this book?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely if you go back and if you read that and then go read No Justice, you can totally see we were influenced there, and there's a lot of the same DNA in there. Because like the planet blowing up in that, like we had a planet blowing up in No Justice because Kolu blew up, and so there's definitely some. The inspiration is very clear and easy. Like it's if someone said like, "Oh, we think you're inspired by that," we'd be like, "Yes." There's no question.
No, we stole from it.
Yeah, and that is definitely where the Odyssey name came from.
All right, great. So what is one thing that you want to share about Odyssey? People have focused so much on the dark side aspect of it, but I think there are so many different characters on this team that are equally surprising for a Justice, maybe not equally, but also surprising on a Justice League team. What is the piece that you think people are sleeping on right now?
With the Odyssey team?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny. People keep asking me about Azrael, too. Like, why is he there? And I'm like, why is he there? And I think he will play an important part of this. I think people will be surprised to see the kind of role he plays going across. I think he's definitely the oddball. But for me, like, every team book always needs to have that POV character that's kind of brought into the situation. And he's a character that's never been in space before. And so he definitely gets to be the POV for the story. Him and Jessica, it's interesting. I feel like it's funny when I talk about this, sometimes I'm like, well, Jessica's the POV. And then I'm like, no, Cyborg's the POV. And I'm like, no, Starfire is. Because I feel like I definitely try to make sure each one of them has like an individual role and is able to have something to do and a voice in the book. But I think people will be surprised with the kind of direction that Azrael goes. But definitely Darkseid is awesome, though.
No,
I feel like if I don't want to talk about Darkseid, then sure, I'll talk about Azrael. But I enjoyed writing all those characters.
Well, that's awesome. Lots of stuff coming. Flash, Justice League Odyssey. We're going to be back with more from San Diego 2018 on CBR.com. Thanks so much.